everyone. Good afternoon.
Thanks for being here.
It's an honor and a pleasure. First time at Seanergy. It's nice to have so many people to talk about hydrogen. Thanks for the invite.
Big moment, absolutely. You're an author, you're an adjunct lecturer at Sciences Po University.
That's correct.
On hydrogen markets, diplomacy, and geopolitics.
The most important part. The most important part.
Exactly. So why does it make sense to combine marine renewables and offshore wind with green hydrogen production, according to you?
Well, according to me and according to basically the literature that's available on hydrogen and marine energies, basically, they're complementary. They're so complementary. They complement so much, so well, both of them all together. And what is funny at this point in the world is that a lot of people want to produce hydrogen at scale, because we need basically a lot of hydrogen. Some in the literature say we need 10% of hydrogen in the global demand by 2050. Some say 25% of the global demand should be met with hydrogen solutions by 2050. Well, anyway, we will need renewables to produce this hydrogen in a green fashion. And that's where marine energies altogether, offshore wind and all the other ones, can come in handy. And basically, if we develop hydrogen on the one hand, we need to develop also marine energies and offshore wind on the other hand, because if you have that, you have basically a very well thought and very complementary, once again, value chain.
How big is that market so far, and which countries are involved?
All countries in the world are virtually involved. The beautiful part when it comes to wind energy is that it could be virtually produced anywhere in the world. And I just said virtually, of course, depending on the cause, depending, of course, on the wind, situation, profile, and so on. And if we want to produce green hydrogen, we need to have a renewable source of electricity to basically split water molecules in order to produce that hydrogen, and also oxygen, but for other stuff. And basically the idea is that at this point in the world, as of June 20th, I think we're on the 21st today, 21st of June,
exactly.
2023. I'm losing count of dates, I'm so sorry. But anyway, as of today, we have 51 countries in the world that have a hydrogen governmental strategy or roadmap or whatever of that sort, 51. So you may say it's not a lot. I mean, there's 193 countries at the UN. So basically, it's only a fraction of that. But these 51 countries altogether make up more than 80% of the global GDP, more than 90% of the global population, and more than 90%, more importantly, of the CO2 emissions right now. So basically, these 51 countries altogether, they are all looking at the best way, or at least a way, to produce green hydrogen at scale. And of course, countries like Denmark, countries like Norway, countries like Morocco, Oman, Chile, Australia, and so many others are definitely looking at offshore wind solutions to produce hydrogen at scale.
A big market potentially, right? But so far, we're not seeing it yet.
We're not seeing it at all, or only so much.
Tiny little bit.
So if we want to provide figures to our audience, basically what we have at this point in the world, in the hydrogen market, we have 94 million tons of hydrogen produced in the world in 2021. 94 million tons. Out of those 94 million tons, only 35,000 tons are actually green hydrogen. So that's basically 0.04% of the global hydrogen production that is really green. So you can see here, with just this little figure, how huge the challenge is. Because all the rest is coming from fossil fuels. So today, 99.26% of the global hydrogen market is basically hydrogen that is produced with fossil fuels. And that's the reason why those 94 million tons of hydrogen produce or emit more than 900 million tons of CO2, which is basically 2.20% of the global CO2 emissions in 2021. So what we need now is to decarbonize hydrogen itself, first of all. And to do that, we need renewables. So that's where, of course, marine energies and offshore wind come in handy. And on top of that, we have also an additional demand for hydrogen that's burgeoning in various sectors. First of all, in hard-to-abate industries. Think steel making, aluminum smelters, cement producers, and so on. And then, of course, mobility. And then, of course, all kinds of mobility, not just like big stuff, but also personal cars. I know that not a lot of people believe that personal cars will run on hydrogen in the future, but actually, there might be quite a chunk of that market that will run on hydrogen. But anyway, my point is, there's going to be so many other applications for hydrogen due to the flexibility that hydrogen provides to the market. And that's the reason why we need to make these connections between the hydrogen market and green energies.
How realistic is it, though, to go 100% green hydrogen?
So it's unrealistic come 2050. It sounds what begins to be maybe realistic come the end of the century. But in the meantime, what's important is that basically we first have to decarbonize hydrogen. And that is a huge challenge because once again, 94 million tons is a huge thing to decarbonize. Then there are also connected markets, such as the ammonia market, that also needs to be decarbonized. And what is ammonia? Ammonia is NH3, so it's basically 3 atoms of hydrogen for 1 atom of nitrogen. And basically, that's the reason why a lot of ammonia producers are looking into, once again, green energies and specifically wind, offshore wind, marine energies to decarbonize ammonia using green hydrogen, using green energies. So basically here we also have another huge market to decarbonize. And when you start adding all of them together, these markets that do exist today, that are hugely fossilized today and that need to be decarbonized, what the literature consistently shows is that by 2050, if we want to reach net zero at the global level, we will need to have a market for hydrogen above 150 million tons, or maybe even 200 or 250 million tons of hydrogen. That's absolutely necessary if we want to reach net zero. So based on that, you can see the connection all across the value chain. And this starts with, of course, once again, wind, solar PV, and so on. And basically, that's connected to what's happening, of course, offshore.
Offshore renewables, exactly.
Yeah.
This is an economic topic. This is a technology question, but it's also a geopolitical question, right?
Yeah. Definitely. Huge market, huge bucks to make. So, of course, a lot of interests. And already a huge competition between, first of all, China, the US, and Europe. China, US, and Europe, the competition is basically on the manufacturing of the machines that we will need to produce that hydrogen and or to produce these green energies to then procure for hydrogen. So that's the first big challenge here. And China basically is already leading because China is controlling about 40% of the global hydrogen production today. So they need to decarbonize. They have a huge, huge, very ambitious strategy to decarbonize their hydrogen production, leveraging, once again, renewables altogether, onshore and offshore. I'm going to put it this way, onshore and offshore. And basically, then you have the US. And in the US, the game changer is, of course, the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed last year. And that basically is creating this huge, huge interest from all over the world on all things related to generating the energy or building the facilities, the gigafactories, to build the machines that we will need to produce these energies. So definitely the US is in the game. And then there's Europe. Europe was ahead of the game in hydrogen. And now the big question is, will Europe maintain its lead? This is becoming more and more and more and more challenging for Europe these days. And we also have new actors coming to the game now. Basically, a lot of countries coming from the so-called global south who are saying, well, the wind that is going to be leveraged to produce the hydrogen, the solar energy that is going to be leveraged to produce that hydrogen, and so on, the hydropower and everything is going to be located in the southern hemisphere. So we also need to develop an industry and industrial capabilities to actually produce our own machinery, produce our own energy and so on. And then we will discuss whether we send it to Europe, whether we use it locally, or basically whether we put in competition Europe, China, and the US, or whether there's like a global market that emerges on the sidelines of friendshoring or other stuff like that that's emerging. So basically, voila, in a nutshell, in less than 10 minutes, that's like just a very, 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 very short introduction to the potential and challenges of hydrogen. And I need to say two things. First of all, there's a lot of potential and opportunities, but we should not miss one thing. Hydrogen is not going to solve all problems at all. It's not going to solve all problems. It's one part of the equation to get to net zero, but only one part. And then the second point we need to talk about is that there's plenty of ways for us, globally as humanity, to mess around with hydrogen. If we don't do it in a proper way, if we, for example, don't care about the leakages of hydrogen, if we produce too much ammonia and we don't really regulate the way ammonia is used, and so on, I mean, I'm trying to be very short here, then basically having a strong hydrogen economy might even offset the climate benefits of switching towards hydrogen. So we need to be very vigilant here, and regulation is absolutely key.
That's it.
For me, yeah. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you
it's a pleasure.
so much for
Thank
that
you guys.
overview. Thank you. Thank you for listening.